Kia ora koutou. As I said earlier on, we are going to start on the dot of 2:30, so we can make the most of the time. So I will begin us off with a karakia. Me inoi tātou. E whatoro atu ana te nākau. Kia ranganui e tūnei, kia papatu anuku e tākatone. Ki te rongarawa, ki te mea naro. Kia arataki nā mātou I roto nā ararau o te reo rangatira, me ona tino āhuatanga katoa. He ara whakapiki, he ara whakakake, he ara whakaputa ki te whae ao, ki te ao marama. Whānau, whānau, haramai he toki, haumi e hui e, taeki. And for those who don't speak Te Reo Māori, it's a lovely karakia to welcome us to the spot, which is the heart is reaching out to ranganui, to papatu anuku, to the highest, to the hidden, to be guided through the 100 paths of the noble language in all its many aspects, a path of growth, a path of pride, a path of liberation to the world of light. And the ending that I'm sure heaps of you are familiar with of whānau, whānau, haramai he toki, is such a beautiful call. It's a saying that's often used to signal that the group is united and ready to progress the purpose of them coming together. And I'll pass over to Michelle to help us start this purpose of coming together about community engagement.
Kia Miranda. Kia ora everyone and welcome. Ko Michelle Gallagher toko ingoa. I'm the program support here with the Centre for Social Impact, and these sessions are brought to you by the Centre for Social Impact and our amazing associates to share their knowledge and support you in the work you do in community. So Foundation North do sponsor us and support us with these sessions, and they'd like to know how many of their grantees are coming along and taking advantage. So I'm just going to launch a poll, which you'll see up on your screen. Could you get your clicking buttons ready and answer that, please? Oh, you're quick off the mark. Thanks, everyone. And just a little bit of housekeeping while we're doing this is we'd love to encourage you to keep your mics on mute, but your cameras on if you feel comfortable to do so. And we'll have some time for questions and answer. So you can use the chat for any of your questions along the way, and me and Kathryn will keep an eye on those. So yeah, kia ora, thank you. Over to you, Kathryn.
Kia ora everyone. We're just going to start with a mihi from myself and Miranda. So tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kathryn tōku ingoa, no Czech Republic me ingarangi oku tipuna, no Tamaki Makaurau ahau, ko kuau tunu tōku kainga, e te rohi a iwi o Ngāti Hei. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm Kathryn. I'm originally from Auckland and I now live in Kuautunu, which is on the east coast of the Coromandel Peninsula. My background is in community psychology and evaluation, and I've been an associate with Centre for Social Impact for approximately 8 years or so. I'll pass over to you, Miranda.
Oh, tēnā koe, Kathryn, and tēnā koe, Michelle. Kia ora koutou katoa, nā mihi kia koutou I te ahi nei. Ko airanga, te whakapaparanga mai, engare ko te mata o Maui te whenua tupu. Kei te mahi hau mō te CSI, ko Miranda, Cassidy-O'Connell, tāko ingoa. So I'm a hail 6 or 7 generations back to Ireland, but my roots are in Central Hawke's Bay. So it is a real pleasure to be with you now. And Kathryn's going to give us, I will share screen now, and Kathryn will kick us off on the whole series that we're so lucky to be presenting.
Yes, thanks, Miranda, and welcome everybody. Look, it's just great to see you all here, and it's a good turnout. So, yeah, big welcome. So look, I'm just going to start today with just giving a little bit of background and context about why we are here today talking about community engagement. So it must have been early last year, we invited some community groups who had attended some of these Te Pūaha talks to give us a little bit of feedback about what some of the issues were that were important to them or topics that they were grappling with. So these topics included the things like everything that you would be familiar with, how to access funding, measuring impact, community engagement, titiriti, and those are the sorts of topics that you're familiar with, which are many of them we've picked up in the Core Skills Toolkit. So as a result of that feedback that we got from some of the community groups that we spoke to, we developed 3 capability development resources that are all now live on Te Pūaha. Some of you have probably already had a look at these. There's the funding guide, which is for organisations that are new to grant making. So people that are starting to apply for funding, wanting to know how to apply for funding, where to go for funding. There's the capability wheel, which is for slightly larger organisations who are really looking to deepen their practice and really create those organisational conditions that are needed for impact. And then we also have the Core Skills Toolkit. So this is what the slide relates to. So this slide, this resource introduces each of these topics that you can see on the slide. And it's the resources for new and small community groups that are starting on their journey. And each of those skill areas is a really important part to have in your organisation. So in the toolkit, each skill area has an introduction. It's got a short section on why it's important. It's got some key questions to ask yourself when you're getting started, and it's also got some links to some resources and templates that could be useful. So look, I think these 3 resources are quite core to our offering through Te Pūaha. They can either be considered as standalone resources, or you can think of them as sort of building blocks that all complement each other, starting with the funding guide to get funding, then moving on to your core skills, and then we're further down the track, getting into the nitty-gritty of the capability wheel. But anyhow, look, just going back to the purpose of this session and why we're here, one of the topics that we've got in the Core Skills Toolkit is community engagement. So if you've been into the toolkit, you will have seen that the information is quite high level, quite general. And we were really keen to go back to this toolkit and pick each of those areas and do a deeper dive into that topic. So that's why we're here today, and this is actually our first workshop that we are running on one of the topics. So we will be running seven of these workshops over the next few months, picking up each of those topics that are on the slide. So in CSI, we have got associates who really have work quite specifically in these areas. And today, Miranda, who does a lot of work in community engagement, some of you may already know her, she's going to share some of the things that she's learnt and some of the things that she has experienced with her work in community engagement over the years. So Miranda, I'd like to hand back over to you, and you can get into the sort of nitty-gritty of the of community engagement.
Well, thanks so much, Kathryn. So what are we going to cover in this session today? We're going to make the most of it, right? We're going to do, look at the why, because you always need to understand the why. I need a why every time I get out of bed in the morning, you know, you can't, otherwise you just want to hang around. So why is community engagement so important? We'll very briefly look at some tips in addition to all the ones that are up on Te Pūaha. So for those who have made it to this talk, this is the only ones who, you know, get this. It's really hot stuff of what works when you're really, really relating to the community. A bit of a reflection on how you guys are going, and opportunity for Q&A. And so, look, I've made a whole slide for this because I want you guys to engage with the chat. Yeah, we're great with Zoom by now, aren't we? All those years of COVID have made us pretty goddamn good at this stuff. You know, it's not too often these days you have to say, you're on mute, because most people know how to do that. So I'm encouraging you to use the chat function over the next half hour. Even if you've come in, the reason you dialed on today is because you've got a particular issue going on. Pop it in chat. Doesn't matter, right? Let's get the questions in there, because we've set aside a good sort of 8 minutes to really talk and in an interactive way. So please pop things up in chat, And to start you off, if you haven't particularly got a question at this moment, introduce yourself to the others on there, right? Just say where you've come from, what part of the country you're dialing in from. It's always really, really interesting to know for everybody who's in the e-room. So engage with the chat. And the beauty of us having Michelle and Kathryn and I is they can monitor this. So you're not talking into a void, you're talking to them. So what is community engagement? Well, it's one of those things that everyone thinks they know, but it's useful to have definition, right? It is essentially about building relationships, fostering communication, and then being able to work collaboratively towards goals, right? That's the essence of community engagement. It's really tapping into the font of knowledge that's in the community that you're serving. I deeply believe that the answers to the dilemmas that we're all facing are already in the community from which you're working. The answer's already there. And community engagement is like opening the flow so you can collectively find those answers. Like you might be thinking, whoa, that's a bit rosy tint glasses. If the answers are already there, wouldn't we just get on with them? But there's loads of reasons why the answers aren't obvious, right? Oh, we've got a test coming up. So the poll quiz came up on my thing. We'll ignore that. If anybody else got that, just push the close button. So that's what community.
Sorry, I can't get rid of that screen. Sorry, Miranda. Michelle, I can't get rid of the screen that's the poll is on.
There'll be a little cross in the right-hand corner of it. Has anybody else got that problem? Michelle, are you saying has anybody else got the issue?
Doesn't look like it in the chat.
Okay, well, we'll just keep going and Kathryn just try and ignore it.
Kathryn.
So that, as what just happened then was also like things happen, right? So me saying the answer's always in the room, yes, or in the community they are, but you have to find ways to navigate all the stuff that gets in the way, right? There could be a natural weather event. Suddenly there are job losses. There are endless things that can happen that really impact a community, which means people aren't as able to be able to collectively work together and deal with issues in front of them. So community engagement, I see as a bridge, right? It's a bridge to be able to unlock all that wisdom that's there, and so you can get on with the action. And why is it so important? Connection, support, impact, right? When you connect with the community that you're serving, you can better understand their needs, right? And so then you can get the work done in a way that's useful. And the support, this is a very reciprocal thing. So a well-engaged community is more likely to support what you're trying to do, and you're more likely to supporting what they wanting to achieve, right? That support is a reciprocal, I can say one, has reciprocity in it. And then once that support's in there, the message spreads and that transformation can take place. And the impact, of course, that's why you're doing the jobs you're doing, is you want to make impact. And the more involved the community is in the work, the greater the likelihood is your projects are going to have, the impact will happen. So that's why it is so important. And what we've got here, this is what I'm going to chat on a little bit about now, because I would be surprised if anyone here on the call has seen this. So you can see there's a little link down there, and I encourage you to go off and check that one. This is from an Australian company that I worked with probably a decade ago now. And their role was collaboration, right? So I worked with them as the New Zealand outpost of this Australian company. And what we did was help people learn how to collaborate. And this diagram is a fantastic guide for you all as you're engaging with community, right? So you'll see it's not linear for a start. If we look at the 5 steps that are in there, and the first 3 have been put in a circle that just keeps going round and round, right? In a most beautiful way. It's a circle of life stuff. It's a circle of abundance. And this is the foundation of solid community engagement. First up, you need to commit to being engaged, right? To collaborating with the community for which you are serving. That commitment, in doing that, with connecting with people, you need to jointly work out what it is you're working on. That's incredible how often people think they're working on one thing when they're actually working on different issues, because they haven't taken the time to really agree, what is this dilemma? What is this issue? What is this challenge that we're working on together? And then co-design how you're going to work together, right? Co-design is one of those trendy words that gets tossed around a lot. And I think sometimes ill-advisedly. In the process of this diagram, co-design means with the people in your community, how is it best to work together? For example, you might be working with, this is a real example I was involved with years ago, we're working with a community who are helping young mums, so teenage mums. And in discussing how best to help them, we had to work out, well, what process is going to work for them? The meetings needed to be outside school hours because they were still at school, right? The meetings needed to be in places where they could bring their babies. The meetings absolutely had to have the young mums in there, because it's incredible how often community discussions happen without the very person who you're trying to assist being in the room, right? So you can hear how that co-designing the process is a very big part of your engagement pathway. So those bits in the circle are all kind of the how and the why you are engaging. And it's only then do you get into co-creation of solutions. Yeah. And too often people jump to the co-creation of solutions before they've done all that beautiful work in that circle. And I have been guilty with it, probably not in the last 10 years or so, because I just am so into community engagement and collaboration, but certainly earlier in my career, I was guilty. I know what's right. You know, I've got the job. I've been given the role as, let's say, manager of accessibility. So therefore, I know the things that are going to be correct. I know what's best for the community. Yeah. The thing is, knowing what's best for the community and engaging with the community to collaboratively make it happen are different things. Yeah. And so community engagement needs that work to happen in those first three before solutions are got upon. And that's tough. Like I have a lot of empathy for agencies, like in organizations and not-for-profits, like a lot of you on the call today, because quite often your funding is tied to delivering certain outcomes, right? So you've already had to sort of say, yes, we'll deliver these things, and you go out to the community to deliver, and you find out in your good community engagement that maybe those solutions aren't exactly what's needed, yeah? And so there needs to be some courage from you as you're engaging with communities. You go in with an open mind and really learning all the time. I'm here to learn as I engage and find out and constantly find out. And then how can we collectively put in the conditions and the projects and the outcomes that we all want, right? So that's a bit of a model that is handy, you know, and it's sort of one when Michelle sends you these slides later, I'd encourage you to even print this slide out, pop it up on your wall, have it by your desk, and say, okay, I'm just going to map a community engagement piece that we're involved with at the moment. How am I going? No, it's only yourself. You don't have to prove it to anybody else. To say, who's in this? Who's committed to this collaboration? Like, who am I working with? Have we really agreed what we're working on? Are we doing this in a way that is going to work for all the people involved there? And then how are we going on our solutions and delivering the actions? Because your kete, it's a beautiful picture of a kete there. It's actually in my room. It's a nice picture, isn't it? Yeah. My husband took that photo and it's like, oh, it's a nice one. When you think about the work that you guys are all involved in, are you clear on your purpose for engaging with the community, right? Have you done those things of co-defining exactly why you're there? Have you been hired by your community? You mightn't know that, right? You might have been hired from somewhere else and they've come in and you are the people, you've got the right intention, you've got the skills to do it. As you engage with the community, you'll find out, have you truly been hired? And therefore, that engagement will run more smoothly. Do you have some ideas for some of the strategies that would work well with your community? You know, that's back to this, the co-design piece. Knowing your community, what will work well for them. And once you've gathered information about their needs, have you got the resources to be able to act on that? Yeah. And really demonstrate that you've listened to your community. Oh, what's happening here? Slideshow again. Interesting. There's some bad juju out there with the tech today. So these are questions to put to yourself. And I hope, you know, as you're listening to this, you have a think, yeah, I get that, but what does it mean in my situation? And so if that's the case, go in and give us a question. Yeah, give us a question on that. So Kathryn has compiled a list of resources, which is super cool. And she's going to walk through some of them now. You're on mute, Kathryn. Kathryn, you're on mute.
Kia ora, Miranda. Thanks for that. Thanks for unmuting me, Michelle. So look, I'm not actually going to spend a lot of time talking about these resources, just to say that if you do go into the toolkit online, you will see this page of resources, and there's links to each of these resources in there. So, but this is just to show you just some of the resources that we've picked up, we've identified, and we're just hoping that you'll find them useful. I guess the other thing to say at this stage is that we're going to be monitoring how people use the toolkit and just keeping our ears to the ground for any new resources that are coming out or new issues that are emerging for community groups. So we're going to be updating this resource page. So just continue to keep your eye on it, and we'll include any new resources that we think will be super useful for the sector. Yeah, that's it. Any other comment about the resources there, Miranda?
No, I think probably just it was really nice, the one from community engagement tips from Inspiring Communities. And again, heaps of you would have tapped into Inspiring Communities. Their work on community-led development is second to none. It's fantastic. And they give us a great reminder that there's no one size fits all when it comes to community engagement, right? Every community is different into itself. And so some of their top tips are, really, which are similar to what we've gone through with the power of co there. Make time to understand the local scene. Who's there and how do things happen? If you're new to the community, you've come in for your job, that's super important, is to take the time to really understand it. Be positive, proactive, and observant. You are a learner, right? You're there to learn so you can then be of best service. I love this next tip they have of do what you say you'll do. Oh, yeah. People, and you will know this, people don't have much time in community. And so if you've made a commitment, you've got to follow up. You've got to follow up. And that will build trust. So next time you do a reach out, they're more willing to make the time to speak with you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, go on.
A really important piece that the Inspiring Communities are raised, and CSI is deeply committed to this. In fact, we've got a whole one of these toolkits is about how you really practice embody te tiriti practices. And what Inspiring Communities is reminding us is that the relationship building between tangata whenua and tangata tiriti is something to bring particular attention to. And, I think it would be fair to say that as a country, we're all really aware of that at the moment, which is fabulous. I think it's a maturation of our country. And for all of you who are at that, right at the edge of, you know, it's not a horrible term, coalface. We need another term, don't we? Because coalface is not what we want to be embracing. You're right at the, goodness, I know, at the tide, at the part where people and community and work are all coming together in that gorgeous flow. And that's the path of the engagement. So if you are tangata whenua, you know what that means for you, and your responsibility is kaitiaki, for all the work in the community, and that comes with a whole lot of things. If you're tangata tiriti, it is crucial that you do your work to understand who is tangata whenua in your rohi, who is there, and really do your work to check that you are an enabling walker of te tiriti in that work. Yeah, I like that. Flax roots is definitely nice than coalface. Thank you. And, you know, and there's plenty ideas for how to reach out. So I think it's also worth noting community engagement can be uncomfortable. Yep. Yep. Because you've got a job, and so there's a level, you're feeling responsible, right? You've got the space and you want to be able to deliver, but it doesn't mean you've got the answers. And I think acknowledging that is probably one of the most important things that you can begin with. Your job is not to have the answers. Your job is to facilitate the conditions so you collectively get those answers with the community. Help make the bridge, help those conditions, and then walk on the bridge with the community. So we're going to open up for some Q&A now. And I'll ask Michelle and Kathryn, are there any questions up there? Any hiaha te pātai?
Yeah, there's a couple of great ones. I think this one from Wayne Ferguson at TalkLink Trust is excellent. So how do you ensure you're engaging with the right people / community and create space for new, fresh or quiet voices?
Yeah, so there's two questions in that, isn't there? You know, the right and then new quiet voices. So I think we'll go with the right piece first. It's back to understanding the community you're in. I think all voices are right, and it would be checking of the diversity of the community. That when you're doing your engagement and you've made a connection with a particular voice, don't stop, right? Just because you worked with that one doesn't mean you're sorted. It's an ongoing journey, community engagement. So all voices are right, and there will always be space for more voices to come in. So a community is a very fluid concept. People move out, people move in, you know, people pass, new children are born, you know, it's a constantly moving space. So it will always be the right voice. So I think it's a really interesting concept, isn't it? Right and wrong. I think all voices in community are right because they're in the community. And so the responsibility is for you to keep checking who's there, keep listening to voices. And then that lovely question about quieter voices. Beautiful. Another one for you as you're out there with the responsibility of community engagement. Always say to yourself, and who haven't I heard? You know, who else could I be checking with? You're wanting to have an inclusive space for all voices, particularly for those who can't voice, right? You might be having some accessibility spaces. Who else can I talk to? Who else can I listen to? Who else can I go and stand alongside? You know, so tapping in to the voices you've already managed to engage with, sharing that responsibility of wanting to understand the diversity and fluidity of the community you're in, I think would be the, you know, and getting alongside and opening up and saying to the people that you've probably got some healthy relationships going, and say, who are we missing? You know, who's not in this? We know there are people that are often here, but we don't are often in the space, but we don't hear what they've got to say. How can we go and stand alongside? And if you remember back to that diagram, those three in the circle, that's back to that co-design bit, isn't it? are we operating in a way that we are hearing all the voices, particularly the quiet ones? Yeah.
Thanks, Miranda. Look, there's another question that popped up, which was about engaging with young people, and it's about struggling. The question was, the experience is that they're struggling with finding effective ways to reach and collaborate with young people in a way that they are going to engage with.
Yeah, yeah. And first up, I wanted to shout out to another CSI associate, Arahanui West, and for you guys to go on to our lovely resource, Te Pūaha o Te Ako. There's a free resource on the CSI website, and you can watch Arahanui's piece. It was about 45 minutes, wasn't it? Stunning. So Arahanui, she introduced me to a new term, and I now wear this label with pride. I'm youth adjacent. I've never heard that one before. Youth adjacent. And so Arahanui is not youth adjacent, she is youth, she is rangatahi, and she had a just jam-packed number of tips in there for how to get with it. But I suppose summary of, thank you Michelle, putting it up already, it's really, really good. And I love actually the way she ends it. She goes, I hope I haven't offended too many of you. Which was an assumption that someone would have been offended with the youthful aspect of it. It's back to the near peer place, isn't it? You know, for the person who put that question up, have you got any actual youth in your team? And it's a really good starter. And if you don't, get some. And a tip would be, don't just get one. It's very, very hard and unfair, I believe, to rely on one young person to pull it off for everybody else, right? So perhaps you don't have the resources in your team to contract multiple youth. You could be creative. Perhaps there's contract one and part-timers and have some volunteer, but it's really important that when you're working with rangatahi that you have a collective nature to it. You know, because we will remember when we were rangatahi, the most important thing to us is we're forming ourselves are our peers. Yeah. And so having that essence in your youth connection is crucial, is to have groupness to it. Any other part-time?
Yeah. Actually, there's just a really lovely comment up here from Flair from the Suitability Trust about that connecting with rangatahi seems to help when the adults have engaging personalities and strength in building relationships. Absolutely.
That's beautiful, Flair. I think it's the we all have the rangatahi still inside us, you know, let it out. It's much more fun. I personally find the older I get, the more immature I become. It's really good. Any other part-time, Kathryn?
Yes, I've got a question here. I mean, just drawing on your own experience, Miranda, when you think back to some of the challenges or barriers that you've faced when you've been engaging with communities, what have some of those challenges been, and how have you managed them?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? It's so I think something that comes up is it's the who to talk with, who to speak with. It's that who, which is similar to that earlier question on the right, isn't it? And that uncertainty about that. And I think the way of dealing with that challenge, which is mostly in your own head, right? Because the community is there. It's a pretty obvious grouping of people to connect with. And the only nervousness about who is what you're telling yourself. So if you can just chill that out, and whoever you speak to is going to be the right person, right? And you'll learn because you're bringing that ongoing learning place. And I think sometimes we talked before about it, sometimes there's discomfort and there can be distrust, right? You know, there can be distrust from community as what's in it for me? What's in it for you? Why should I give my special time to this? You know, and a reluctance to be engaged with. And ways to work with that is again back to how you are, how authentic you're being and bringing yourself to the work, and the clarity with what you're coming with, you know, your intent. your own kaupapa, again, back to that circle, that you share that you're working on the same purpose. And that really helps get past that, who should I talk to, and distrust that's out there.
Kia ora, Miranda. That was great. Look, I've just had a question that has actually popped into my mind with just some of the experience that I've had in previous jobs, work that I've done in community engagement. And sometimes within organisations there's a time imperative. So that, you have a role to engage with community, and then you're getting messages from managers saying, oh, well, that's enough now. We've run out of time for community to do community engagement. And what advice would you, I've this is all bringing back memories of me being in that situation. What advice would you give to people? There could be people online who, some of the people here who are experiencing that, have experienced that.
Oh, it's an excellent question. I do think we have moved on societally in
Yes.
general, in the sense that we are aware that community engagement is the work, that relationship building is the very flow and fuel that enables all projects to happen. And yet, even though we know that, there's still a reluctance by funders and bosses, really, to make time for it, to account for it. It's meant to be just something you bring to it. That comment from Flair earlier, if you're a personable person, or you've got those soft skills, you'll be able to do that stuff. But the real work is writing up the report, or the real work is whatever it else is. And so I think it's staying staunch to, relationship building is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And ways to help yourself stay strong with that is perhaps start developing a practice of observation about your community engagement. I'm going to flip in another model, and I've been quite well behaved. I haven't given us too many models today because I'm a bit of an addict for models. ORID, ORID. And so if you haven't heard of it, just look it up on Google. But it's a really useful frame. The O stands for objective, the R stands for reflective, the I is for implication or interpretation, and the D is decisional. And what that can do is you can just, I use it on a daily basis. It can help you, oh, well done, Michelle. It can help you say, well, objectively, you've been doing things. So track down these the community engagement, relationship building work you've been doing. I went and saw X persons today. This was the topic of our conversation, right? Then you could have an interpretive piece, because you're bringing your thought process based on the kaupapa of your organization. So what was learned from that interaction that directly is going to help the work we're doing, right? Sorry, I missed reflective. That reflective would be a piece of, how did that make you feel? Because you've got to bring your emotion, and that how did that make you feel is part of your ongoing self journey to be the most effective community engagement person ever. If you're dealing with your own stuff, is really, really important. Yeah. So you notice it, you track it, you check how it makes you feel, and then you do an interpretive piece, and you can be sharing that with your team. And as you're building this stuff up, you will come to those points. It might come near where you're having to report back on funding, or it might be when you're about to apply for more funding, or you're wanting to hold a community hui and you're wanting to share with what's been going on. You've got this gorgeous, massive information that you've gathered that can help make decisions. And it's based on, because that's a scientific method, isn't it? You've just demonstrated that you're tracking your progress, you're interpreting and reflecting what it means for the kaupapa that your job you're in, and then you're helping it make better work for going forward. So I think that's maybe, Kathryn, a way to, gosh, we should say make hard the soft skills, but I think the hard and soft is just a load of baloney, right? Relationship building and community engagement is the very foundation for all change. we've got, I think that's it, actually, isn't
That's it. Yes, yes. Well, kia ora, Miranda. That's thank you so much for your insights and your knowledge, experience that you have shared with us today. And a huge mihi to everybody here for attending and being part of this conversation. It was really, really great to have you here. And so just wrapping up, I just wanted to note that, as I mentioned before, this is going to be the first of 7 online workshops that we're going to be doing on the Core Skills Toolkit. So do keep your eye out, and we'll be offering these over the next few months. And we're going to be using some of this content to actually flesh out the web page on community engagement that's in the Core Skills Toolkit. So we'll be continuing to develop the content for that toolkit, and we're planning to grow our offering in this area. So at the end, just building on that, at the very end of these set of workshops, we're going to be going out to you, to everybody who's attended, with it's to find out from you if there is any interest in any sort of follow-up support or some more in-depth workshops around the topic areas. Yeah, I think that's about it. So we will be Michelle will be emailing the recording of this workshop to everybody. And Michelle, is there anything else at this stage?
Michelle's popped in a link there for, it's always nice to get a wee survey, peeps, if you can just
That's
do that.
right.
That'd be good.
Yes, great.
And,
yes, feedback.
So huge thanks to everyone for coming on. It was just a little tap in the toe, or a wee hand up to that flax root, as a reminder, because you guys are all doing this, right? So just remind yourself you are engaging with your community, and the biggest thing you can do is to bring yourself to the work. Yeah. And with that, I'm going to close us off with a karakia. I'm going to wish you all well with your community engagement. It is very important work that you're doing, and ngā mihi kia koutou for doing it. Me inoi tātou. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa. Te atawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti. Me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu. Ake, ake, ake. Āmene.
Āmene.
Go well out there.
Ka kite.